This is the BBC.
Dear brothers and sisters, all are welcome here at the Confessions podcast, whether saint or sinner.
Well, hello there, and thanks for downloading the third and final of our special Summer Confessions podcast. Not at all recorded all at one time, but we've all come together for these special recordings on a week-by-week basis, just designed to tide you over while myself and the Confessions take a bit of a sabbatical. It must have been awful without me, Joe. I know you've missed me very much.
We've coped. It's not been so bad.
Fine. I see.
Obviously, I'm delighted that you're back, really. Only joking. We've got to get ready. We have some hard work, intensive training for our Edinburgh shows next week.
Yes, that's true. And in fact, we thought to help get you in the mood, we'd bring you a special podcast featuring the best of our festival-related confessions from years gone past.
Recorded live at the Edinburgh Fringe, there are confessions from comedians including Tim Vine, Marcus Brigstocke, Greg Proops and Jason Byrne.
So relax and enjoy this splendid Edinburgh Festival special.
Please be seated.
It's time for our first celebrity confession of the week. And let me tell you that Brother Matt and Sister Rebecca are ready to pronounce, and also Brother Sean Keaveney making a guest appearance on our
Good
collective.
evening. Thank you.
This time last year, Sean was confessing his sins, and he's had such a good year. He's progressed, never mind the audience figures, never mind the success of his Six Music show.
Thank you.
He's now progressed to be part of the Radio 2 collective for the Confessions.
I have, yes. Thank you very much indeed for receiving me back into the fellowship.
Are you a figure of moral responsibility?
I feel morally superior.
Right, fair enough.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you welcome to our stage here the one and only Greg Proops,
Wow.
who's live here in Edinburgh. He has a show, The Smartest Man in the World. It's on in Edinburgh. Greg, it's very nice to see you. How are you, sir?
I'm real well, Father Simon. How are you?
We're very good. How is your Edinburgh so far?
That's fantastic. We're doing Whose Line Is It Anyway over at the, whatever it's called, the Underbelly.
Yeah.
And it's been great. And we're doing it tonight and tomorrow with Josie, Phil Jupitus, and Clive, the bald guy, and Stephen Frost. And then I got the podcast tomorrow at the Guild of Berlin.
Okay, so
It's great to be back in Scottish land again. I've missed fried food. And well done, you finished the tram. Hooray!
Okay, now the music is playing, and we've invited you, Greg, because I understand there is something that you'd like to ask forgiveness for. So here's our first confession of the week. Greg Proops, take it away.
I've been laboring under this for ages and ages, Father Simon, and I felt that there was no better place to confess this than on Radio 2. Forgive me, Father Simon, for I have sinned. Though I'm seriously doubtful as to your authority in spiritual matters, I'm willing to confess to you as I'm on shaky terms with the Almighty. She and I haven't seen eye to eye for a while. I've never confessed other than to a bartender, so if I'm tentative at first, I ask for forgiveness in this area as well. When I was at college, I majored in chasing chicks and avoiding homework, but that is not what I ask forgiveness for. I believe that's normal behavior for a man or man-child of 20 years. I shared a dormitory room with my childhood friend, Forrest. I'm from California. We're named Forrest there. Hardly any Anguses. We had matriculated through school together, although we didn't emulate the older boys, and high school. And we'd acted up in class, and I spent a good deal of time sitting outside considering my behavior for what I felt were hilarious and evocative impressions of my teachers. This, too, is not what I asked forgiveness for. We'd moved from our small white suburb of San Carlos to San Francisco to attend San Francisco State University, and we were living on the 14th floor of Verducci Hall, where we spent most of our time throwing things out our window at the early morning tennis players below us. Yet even these acts I do not wish to atone for. We often came home late, being social and full of high spirits, and on separate missions. I'd stolen a stop sign at some point, and while living in San Carlos, and had brought it with us to our dorm room where it lived in the corner. When one of us would get home before the other, we'd slide the stop sign under the other's bed covers, knowing that we always backflopped onto the bed, creating a hilarious situation where you would land on a hidden sheet of metal.
Right.
Thus risking injury while almost certainly inebriated, at the least overly refreshed. This game quickly became predictable, and wishing to up the stakes when I would hear Forrest drunkenly fumbling with his keys, I would take off all my clothes, get in his small wardrobe, and hold the stop sign. He would fling open the closet door to find his best friend and roommate naked, save for the stop sign in front of him. This often led to a minor heart attack on his part, and much hilarity ensued. in the manner of all high-spirited and directionless young idiots. Then came a moment of inspiration. I sense a certain amount of judgment from the room here, by the way. As if no one's ever gotten drunk and naked in someone's closet and stood there with a stop sign. Like, I'm the bad guy in this one? Wow, Scotland. Look in a tiny cracked mirror. Then came a moment of inspiration. As one particular evening, I knew for a fact he'd been at a soiree where he was guaranteed to have over-imbibed. We dwelled, as I said, on the 14th floor, and there was a small balcony, not really a balcony. You were forbidden to get on it. It was more of a ledge that ran outside. There was no rail and no wall, just a 2-foot ledge, 14 stories up. He came home as I expected, and then my coup de grace came to fruition. I took off my clothes, clambered out the window into the windy San Francisco night, and stood naked on the ledge holding the stop sign in front of me. Forrest struggled to get the door open, turned on the light. He saw I wasn't there. He opened his closet and proceeded to get his clothes off while not noticing I was perched on the ledge outside, risking the elements. He was some time in making his bedtime ablutions, and finally, in his haze, he lifted his eyes to our window and saw me stark naked on the outside staring at him. He then fell over backwards in a fit of panic, which of course was my desired response. I clambered back into the room and attempted to revive him, but I had literally almost scared him to death. So I asked forgiveness for being a heedless moron who put myself in danger and tried to harm my friend with a stupid and dangerous act that would now be considered the stuff of an MTV reality series. If you can't find room in your heart, then I will accept a tram pass.
Okay, that's great Proops for you. Great Proops confessing live. Let's check in with Brother Sean. First of all, Brother Sean, what do you think?
I have never been so disgusted in all my life.
Personal peril, nakedity as well. I think that nakedity? Absolute nakedity and personal peril, I think a wonderful combination. Hijinks at college, I think it's totally necessary for people to act like this at university and college. And I think not only should you be forgiven, but you should actually not be castigated, but carried shoulder high from this venue and to the nearest pub where we get you drunk again, and you can do it all over again, Greg. That is my view. Not only are you forgiven,
awesome
you should be celebrated.
Sister Rebecca, what do you make of it?
Sean, I'm afraid I couldn't agree with you less, actually.
What?
The thing about students that I always hated was the stealing of stop signs, and also the japes where you try and hurt your roommates by getting them to break their backs, etc., by falling backwards on the bed. The only redeeming feature is the fact that you risked your life to make your roommate collapse. And so I'm going to forgive you for that only, because it was actually brave. Were you inebriated?
Was I what?
Were you inebriated or sober at the time?
Was I inebriated?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were.
So
Maybe not that brave, but I'm still going to forgive because you did risk your life. But I don't approve of the stealing of stop signs and that kind of thing.
Brother
Yeah,
Matthew.
let he who has never come home drunk with a stop sign or an estate agent sign, and put it into the partner's bed. Let it cast the first stone, because we've all done it. We've all been there.
No, we
what
haven't.
I can't understand here, how big is this wardrobe that you're fitting in it and you're getting a stop
It was
sign?
a stand-up
massive
wardrobe like that.
This
You could open the
massive.
door.
When I was at university, it was a cupboard. That was you'd never get anyone in that. So I am going to forgive, because your friend sounds like he's got far too big a wardrobe. So I'm forgiving you because of your friend's fancy big wardrobe.
Because of the size of the wardrobe.
Yes,
That's how you're
yeah,
deciding this
totally
thing.
logical, I think you'll find.
Okay, so we have a variety of opinions here, so it's kind of down to you. I mean, we'll get the people's verdict as normal via text and email. Thank you very much indeed. But as far as the Edinburgh crowd are concerned, do you forgive Greg Proops? Yes or no? Yes! Greg, consider yourself forgiven.
Thank you, darlings.
The Confessions Podcast.
Okay, so it's time for another live drive time Edinburgh Fringe confession. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tim Vine. Unaccustomed as you are to rapturous applause.
Oh, this is... I remember what that sounds like now, yes.
Tim, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, how are you?
Very good. This is Matt. This is Eliza.
Matt,
They're the people
Eliza.
going to be judging your confession.
Well, goodness me, yes. I very much enjoyed that song, by the way. Fantastic.
Oh,
I'm actually, mind you, I'm actually totally deaf, and I never thought him was so that.
The TV he started. He started now. TV chat
Yes.
show is your big gig here this year.
Yes, it's a chat show where I bring people out the audience and I interview them about things, well, about themselves. It's hilarious on a good day. Tuesdays.
But is it actually always about you?
Yeah, kind of. No, I just sort of crowbar a few jokes in and, along the way. Give me a profession, see if I've got a joke about it.
Oh, okay. A taxidermist.
Stuff that.
Okay, mate.
That was too easy.
It was. Okay.
Bless you for that one.
Okay, a sports journalist specialising in the Commonwealth Games.
Football, you say? Okay. I went to a football match in Japan. At the end, they started doing martial arts. I said to the bloke next to me, I said, what's going on? He said, there's 2 minutes of ninjury time.
Okay, very good. Okay. Well, we'll let you off that. So, before we do the entire show, because I know we could basically fill between now and 7 o'clock with your stuff. I understand that there is something that you want to confess.
I do.
To the nation, and the nation will be judging, and Eliza and Matt will.
Okay.
Will be
Yikes.
judging
Okay.
too.
Well, you give me the nod when you want to actually start this confession. Obviously, it's quite an emotional thing for me. This.
Start the confession.
Yes.
Nod.
Okay. Dear Father Simon and the Holy Collective. Have you seen that new Christian restaurant? It's called The Lord Giveth, and also does takeaway. That was an extra joke I thought I'd chuck at the beginning. Yeah.
Is this going to be just stand-up, or is it going to be a confession?
Hang on, it's a confession.
Okay.
Right. This confession took place on Wednesday, July the 7th, 1982. I know the exact date because I kept a diary for 5 years, from 1981 to 1983. A couple of those years really dragged. I was at school in Epsom, and as you know, life is full of ups and downs. Also at my school was the broadcaster and journalist Jeremy Vine, who coincidentally had the same surname as I did. And even more coincidentally, the same parents. I was 16 at the time of the event in question, and my brother was 17. We were your average teenagers of the 80s. Jeremy liked Elvis Costello, Joy Division, and David Bowie, whereas I liked Jim Reeves and the Muppets. What a band they were. Jeremy watched The Professionals. I favoured the Dukes of Hazzard, which, as we all know, was a far superior show. But there was one thing that united us. We loved to think up pranks to wind up the teachers. We came from quite a strict school. In the school play, you had to put your hand up before you said your line. Huge laugh, move on. So, I was hoping for more from that one, but anyway. So practical jokes were frowned upon. I remember once somebody hit me with a gold bar. I was the victim of bullying. I'm back. So one day, while letting my mind wander during a torturous attempt to write an essay on Henry VIII, did you know Anne Boleyn had a brother called Tenpin? I began to think of new pranks to play. It was then that I formed the idea that this confession centres on. You see, every morning at school, our housemaster, Mr. Moody, no names have been changed, he would gather the house together in the library, about 70 boys in total. There would then follow a short assembly of notices and prayers, after which we would all traipse dutifully up to lessons. How hilarious it would be, I thought, if during this assembly a pantomime cow were to trot past the library window. I shared this idea with Jeremy, who thought it was brilliant. Hi, this is Jerry Vine. I think that's brilliant. Quite how the next part of the scheme proceeded, I can't really remember, but suffice to say it was decided that the front of the cow would be Jeremy and the back of the cow would be not me, but Jeremy's friend called Titch, who weirdly was a boy of average height. My job would be inside the library where the assembly was taking place. I simply had to wait for the optimum moment and then discreetly open one of the library windows. This was the secret signal for the pantomime cow to begin its lolloping trajectory. So the morning of July the 7th, 1982 arrived. As the house gathered in the library, I stood nervously next to the signal window. And if I leant backwards and looked out, I could just see the edge of a pantomime cow crouching next to the outside wall and the sound of two teenage boys giggling and shushing from within. Everything was in place. The anticipation was almost unbearable. The Mr. Moody then entered the library and a respectful hush fell over the 70 or so boys. It was during a particularly serious notice about the school sanitarium that I lowered the window into its now cow position. And then a sight that I can still remember clearly all these years later, as a pantomime cow trotted half forwards, half sideways past the window. All eyes turned. There was a pause of astonishment that lasted almost 3 seconds, followed by a combination of an enormous laugh and a cheer of surprise from everyone in the library. A sound so joyous, I've spent the last 20 years trying unsuccessfully to recreate it. Now, when I say everyone laughed, that isn't strictly true. Mr. Moody didn't laugh. He stormed out of the library and in pursuit of the cow. The second lasting memory of the event was the moment Mr. Moody, having chased the cow down the grassy slope towards the playing fields, cheered on by 70 boys, caught up with it and with one angry swipe, knocked its head off.
What?
Unfortunately, not literally, just the costume bit.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm not reporting a murder at this stage. Unfortunately for Jeremy and Titch, they were duly frog-marched, or herded, back into school where they were both given the cane. And I don't mean as a present. 6 of the best each. I, as the architect of the event, got off scot-free. So, Father Simon and the Holy Collective, I would like to ask forgiveness for encouraging my brother, the very respected journalist and broadcaster, Mr. Jeremy Vine, to do something he was caned for, while I received no punishment whatsoever. I would also like to ask forgiveness from my brother for not asking his permission to tell this story.
Tim Vine.
The Confessions Podcast.
Katie Tunstall, now you're going to stay with us because you've got some more songs to do, but also you know quite well our confessee today.
Yeah,
Is this
I'm
right?
very excited about this. I want to hear what we're going to hear.
Well, I'm slightly nervous about what we're going to hear. Let's welcome Marcus Brigstocke to the show. Marcus. Hey, Marcus, how you
Hello.
doing? How you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm fine, thank you, yes.
It's very good to see you, sir. We enjoyed your show very much last night.
Oh, thank you, yeah, it was
terrific.
fun.
And on the basis of that, slightly nervous about, because it's a very personal show that you're doing. And you're not, there's a few rants, a couple of things that are political, but essentially it's all about you.
Yeah, it is.
And far more sort of confessional.
A little bit confessional, yes. I've always taken the view that comedians who only talk about themselves need to find a more interesting subject, but it turns out I am the most interesting thing in my own life.
Because
so I've stuck to that.
Okay. But it was a great show, and you know Katie, we understand.
I know Katie well. Oddly enough, we became firm friends floating about in the Arctic.
We did.
Of all places, happens to be true. Floating up and down the west coast of Greenland, meeting Inuit people and eating raw seal meat.
This sounds like it must have been for television.
Yeah, there was.
No, it wasn't. It was
just
just
for
a
fun.
thing.
No, and one of the best things that happened with me and Marcus, that we went to this Inuit museum and they had the kind of traditional clothes on show, and me and Marcus found a zip.
It's true. It's true. Like, all like amazing sealskin clothes, and you're like, wow, how do they do that? Like stitching, just using the skins of the. Oh, a zip. A simple zip. Wonderful. Yeah.
Okay, so the show's very confessional, and so I don't know whether there's something else that you're going to confess, whether it's going to be a particularly embarrassing thing. I don't know if we've checked this through.
I feel genuinely bad about the thing I'm going to confess.
Oh, that's good.
Right.
Yeah.
Does Katie know about it?
No, Katie doesn't know this. I did
so much to choose from, Marcus.
yeah, there is. There are some bad things. I did a bad thing, Simon. Should I start? Should I say it now?
Yeah.
Okay, well, forgive me, Father Simon, for I have sinned. It's been, well, my whole life since my last confession. Some years ago, I took a holiday in the island of Majorca. It's a very beautiful place, and I was there with my family, and we went to a beautiful bay there called San Telmo, and there are some lovely restaurants, little family-run restaurants, and they're all very cute, and they're just lovely people, and you overlook the bay. And this bay has a little island in the middle of it, and we were sitting there enjoying the Spanish food, the paella and chibarones and all of this stuff, and it was wonderful, and sangria and the whole bit. And then these 3 boats from Magaluf arrived, right? And Magaluf, I can't say what it's also known as because this is an afternoon show. But change the first letter to a sh, and that gives you... so if you can spell, you can be rude, right? These 3 boats, the 3 jumbo boats, arrived, and they bring loads of incredibly noisy people, and they play "We Roll Off the Daddy's Bay" like this, and I was livid with them. And then there's this announcement where they go, "Right, you're going to stop here for 10 minutes. Right, you can go ashore and get a postcard and wander around and see some real Spanish people. If you don't touch them now, because they will turn." You know. And it spoiled it. Now, I had, at that time in my possession, that I had found on the internet, an enormous slingshot. And when I say enormous, it took 3 people to fire this thing. 2 to hold either side of this enormous length of rubber with a pouch in the bottom. And I bought, because it was fun just to send them into the bay, some water bombs. And so my brother and my father and I set ourselves up on the edge of this restaurant, and we launched an aerial offensive on the 3 jumbo boats, which were now serving sangria to the people who got their postcards. And so we kind of blitzed them with water bombs, which was quite fun. And, you know, they got wet. And that's not the confession. What happened then, Simon, is that unfortunately we ran out of water balloons. And then we needed to find something else to send because they were still singing their awful songs. And so I tried a bread roll from the restaurant. But being light and bready, quite delicious actually, it didn't make the distance. So the only way to make it cover all that distance was to wet it. So I added weight by pouring sangria onto the bread rolls, and then we fired bread rolls, and they formed a beautiful arc like a comet through the Spanish afternoon sun and landed with a hefty splat right in the middle of the 3 jumbo boats. And we hit a lot of people until all the bread had run out, and then we moved on to baked potatoes, and that really may have been a step too far. And so we scattered people off the side of the boat. It was in many ways a terrible thing. So I'm here, Simon, to ask forgiveness. Obviously not for bombing them, they were awful, but for wasting bread and potatoes. Food waste is a really key issue. A key issue, and that's really what I'm here to talk about. It was a lovely restaurant, and we just wasted bread that they'd baked with their own fair hand, and the beautiful potatoes which we could have eaten. And so I apologise for having wasted bread and spuds on such awful people.
Because food waste is one of your big issues, isn't it?
It's a big thing. Yeah. It's really important. We throw away 1/3 of what we buy in this country, and I then took that on tour.
OK, it's Marcus Brigstocke's confession. It's one of the very rare slingshot confessions that actually ever will make it onto the air, because we're looking at the arbiter of confessional taste here, and if it's got a slingshot or a crossbow or a weapon of any kind, it's not going to get on normally. But it's Marcus's confession. Let's see. Katie Tunstall, personal friend of Marcus Brigstocke. Let's see what you think. Should we be forgiving Marcus or not? What do you think?
Well, I have to say, I suspect Marcus has done much worse things in his life.
We know that. See his show for details.
And so, really, when it comes to the balance and the bigger picture, I think Marcus should be forgiven for it.
Yes. You know how much I had to filter before I came up with one story that would be acceptable.
Brother Matt.
Bless you, Marcus, for bringing a political message
Yes.
into what is effectively a story about you pelting other people with baked potatoes.
Yes.
Well done for that.
Yes.
I've got to say, there were other things I could think of that were far worse to pelt them with. But I am going to turn this into a class war. I'm going to say that you just didn't like them because you don't like those people on the boat. And so, therefore, you decided there with your sangria and ordering food, doubtless in Spanish, because that's what you do on holiday.
Yes, that's
you
right.
took against them, and I'm going to turn it into that kind of story.
Yes.
And so, therefore, I am not going to forgive. Oh, the audience is with me. Pitchforks at the ready.
You have, sir, correctly identified the fact that I am a colossal snob.
Let's find out, audience, do you forgive Marcus Brigstocke or not? It's a cheer if you forgive, and it's a boo if you don't.
I'm not. Did you hear those awful people booing? I'm not above firing weapons at you.
Marcus, thank you very much indeed for coming down.
My pleasure.
And
Thank you for having me,
I
sir.
love the Brummie accent in there, because one of the great joys of your show is your mastery of many accents from around this country and other countries.
Yes.
And the fact that you aren't embarrassed, or the audience were cringing, thinking, please don't do the Nigerian, but you just went ahead.
I just carried on.
And it's a fantastic show. Marcus
Bless you.
Brigstocke,
Thank you
ladies and
so
gentlemen.
much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Marcus.
The Confessions Podcast.
on the stage and already demanding attention. Jason Byrne's doing our confession.
Hello. Sorry, this is not good for radio at all.
Do you want to describe what you're doing?
Well, you introduced me off air, and then that's not very easy for a comic to stay quiet and do nothing. So I've been basically reenacting Buckaroo. And it's great because the audience in Scotland are so much fun, and they've just dressed me with a crutch, an umbrella, an iPhone, a backpack, and somebody else's jumper.
Okay, which is all of which.
Sorry?
Is this going to be relevant for your story, or it's just...
No, it's just to make the story funnier.
Okay. So with his umbrella up and his crutch in his left hand and his rucksack casually tossed over one shoulder, Jason Byrne, do you have a confession for us tonight?
Yes, I do. Father Simon. Also, can I just start off by saying that, of course, to Protestants, confession is quite a funny thing, but it's an actual thing that Catholics have to do for real. So well done for having a laugh about that. That's get them up to do a confession. The Catholics are mad. God bless us and all, but we actually really do this. But Protestants don't have to confess because you don't do anything wrong, so well done. It's a big party, isn't it, with the Protestants and with your separations and divorces and leaving whenever you want. And sorry, this is... Here we go, anyway. This is... And also, can I say, Simon, when you confess to somebody, like to a priest, he's not allowed to tell anybody. This is all backwards. We're live on air. Anyway, I've never told this story, actually. I was... this is a major confession. If the guy's listening in, this will be just great. I was in Amsterdam, and there we go. No, that's not true. Don't do that. I was in Amsterdam, right, and we were there, and in a hostel called Arena. It doesn't matter about that. And I was with my friend PJ, and now what happened was when we arrived into this hostel at the start of the 2 weeks, we had plenty of money, and we had rooms to ourselves, so we were doing very well. Then we ran out of money very quickly, as you would do while you're on holidays as a 20-year-old in Amsterdam. And... So we ran out of money, and then we went into a room with 4 people, and then 6, and then 12. Now, this is where this horrible thing happened. One night, myself and PJ, we were sharing a bunk. Well, as in, like, he was in the bottom and I was in the top. We weren't just... we weren't both in one bed together. No, so he was on top and I was on the bottom. And there was French and Italians in the room with us. We didn't really speak to them, but this is the awful thing that happened. We kind of nodded off, and as we nodded off, we heard a very loud snoring noise coming from one of the bunks, and it was like a that kind of snoring, shouting snoring, that the type of thing that women hate and they can't, where you want to actually kill your husband, that kind of thing. So we were wide awake, right? And I was going, oh my God, I can't sleep, PJ. And he was going, I know, it's that Italian bloke at the bottom there, right? And I went, is it definitely him? And he goes, yes, it is him. So everybody hears, oh. So I was in the top bunk and I picked up my boot.
Oh, no.
And I threw it as hard as I could at his head. And he jumped up, no joke, jumped up and went, oh my God, what is happening? What is happening? And as he was sitting up, the poor fella just go, what is happening? What is happening? Oh my God, who did that? Who did that? And myself and PJ just faced the wall, just shaking in the bed, laughing. And as he was saying, who did that? All we could hear is... So if that Italian man is listening in, because the next day we were having breakfast, he goes, somebody hit me in the head with a shoe. I don't know what happened. We're going, yeah, man, it was terrible. So that's my confessions. I've got many, but that's the one that we can only fit in. Okay.
All right, it's Jason Byrne's confession. Very good, Jason. Thank you very much indeed. Let's see what people make of this. Sean Keaveney.
Oh, That's awful, isn't it? I mean, that's common assault, I think, isn't it? Really, essentially, das boot in the face.
Yeah.
But those situations are extremely high pressure, aren't they? It has to be said. And I've been in many situations where I've been sleeping with many people at once. I'm talking, of course, about in a hostel.
Yeah.
And case of mistaken identity, a heavy boot. It's easily done. It could happen to anybody. I'm feeling particularly forgiving, considering I've just had 28 minutes extra sleep.
Okay.
I think, what the hell?
The snoring is difficult.
But
it wasn't as difficult when we came back into the room where there was a toilet there, and there was somebody else on the toilet. But they didn't know we were in the room, and they were shouting going to the toilet. Shouting as they shifted.
Okay, now
they had no idea there was anybody in the room. They thought everybody was left the bedroom, and all I heard is, "Oh!"
We're veering off script. Sister Rebecca, what do you say to Jason?
I agree, there's nothing worse when you're trying to sleep and someone's keeping you awake. I mean, you'll do the maddest of things. But I think throwing a boot at the guy's head was a bit extreme. And you could have actually got the guy who was actually snoring just by shouting really loudly, and everyone would have woken up. But, having said that, there's nothing worse than shouty snoring.
Yeah,
and
so you suggest I could have just went, "Hello?"
Yes, exactly.
Everybody awake. Who's snoring?
Exactly that. Or you should have just gone, "Stop snoring," and everyone would have gone.
Yeah, but you know when someone's in a deep sleep, they won't wake.
They do if you shout loudly enough.
They definitely wake up if you throw a boot at them.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, I think I'm with you with the whole shouty snoring thing, so I'm going to forgive you.
Brother Matthew.
I think the best thing about this is this Italian guy, when he wakes up, decides, I'm going to say this in comedy Italian accent. I'm not going to say it in Italian. I'm just keep talking like Super Mario.
Bruno Taglioli.
Yeah. He was waking me up. Yeah.
He was actually dressed like that.
Was he?
And then you want to see the way he walked. He just jumped over blocks.
So, yeah, for that, I'm going to forgive because of the Italian who thinks he speaks like that all the time.
Yeah, he's a nightmare.
Audience, do you forgive Jason, yes or no? Jason, consider yourself forgiven, and thank you very much indeed, and thank you for allowing us to hear that story, maybe for the first time.
Thank you, Father Simon, and I'm sorry to the Italian man.
The Confessions Podcast.
Hello, Russell, how are you?
I'm not too bad, Simon, thanks.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You look contemplative, and you look
I
slightly...
am contemplative. I've got a halo over my head because you've made me come here to confess something.
Well, that's true. First, how's the show going?
Oh, the show's really good. I mean, it's Strictly Edinburgh, so it's all about Strictly Come Dancing, a lot of secrets about Strictly, breakfast television, but most importantly, it's the story of my life told through disco.
Wow.
So in 55 minutes, there's 8 disco numbers, and if you don't dance, you get chucked out.
Brilliant.
That sounds effective. So don't go and be grumpy, basically.
No, you got to come and have joy and spread the joy, and it's fantastic. So you get everything from Kylie to Gloria Gaynor to Bobby Darin to, well, it's everything you've ever wanted in life.
Wear sequins, that's the thing.
Lots of sequins, but no sex.
Right, okay, good. Fine. So maybe you're leading us into your story. What is, you're here, it's our confessions, it's our drive time live confessions then, Russell. What is it that you'd like to confess to tonight?
Well, Father Simon and the Holy Collective, I have a confession. Not so long ago, a very hot, sweltering day in London town on the Underground, pushing 37 degrees. I got on at Liverpool Street Station onto the Underground, and everybody was being sweaty and rubbing against each other on the tube. And this confession is not what you think it is, by the way. For many, many years, 40 years, if not more, I've had a thing called tinnitus, which means in my ears you hear constant ringing and noises, and it's something you can't stop, and you have to live with it. And so on this hot, sweltering day in the carriage, I'm thinking to myself, my tinnitus is really bad today. And it was like a... And I thought, my tinnitus has now got rhythm. And I suddenly realised, as I looked across the carriage, there was somebody there who was not just playing rap, the worst kind of... I can't even use the word music for it, but he was impaling every person in that carriage with his music choice. And it was awful. It was so awful. We're already hot and bothered. And we have this... And I'm thinking, I can't stand it. I really can't stand it. Shall I go and tell him to buy some more expensive earphones or headphones? Anything. But there's nothing worse than being in a carriage or a bus and somebody thinks that what they like, you're going to like as well. Anyway, somebody got off just past Liverpool Street as we're coming into Tottenham Court Road. And it was the seat next to this person. I thought, I'm going to go and sit there. So I went and sat there, and this guy is in another world of his...
Nice.
And I thought to myself, I've got to stop this. Oxford Circus was my stop. So he was in another world, and he had his iPhone, or whatever it was, with the little plug that goes in from the iPhone up to his ears. I took a deep breath, and for the whole of humanity, I pulled his plug out. And I ran towards opening carriages at Oxford Circus to see this guy looking everywhere for why had this awful racket stopped. He got up, looked at his seat, looked round. The one thing he didn't do was to see that he was unplugged from the instrument to his ears. And all I could do was just turn round and say to him, next time, play Dusty in Memphis.
Very good, very, very good.
So,
yeah. Very good, Russell.
So, Father Simon
Yes,
and the
Russell.
Holy Collective, my confession is this. I confess that I wished I pulled the plug on him earlier at bank.
All right. Should have been Dusty in Memphis. Inconsiderate people on the tube. Let's see what our collective make of that. Sean Keaveney's going first.
Well, you know, if everybody was annoyed by a man's annoying noise and music choices, nobody would listen to my breakfast show on 6 News. That's what concerns me about this. But it's obvious from the reaction from the crowd, which was visceral, that you did something, as you say, for the good of humanity. It's absolutely fine to listen to whatever music you like, but inflicting it upon others, like I do every morning between 7 and 10, is unforgivable. And I've got a deep self-hate for that myself. And so, but I do forgive you. If the issue is you're upset that you didn't do it earlier, I forgive you, because obviously you had a lot of courage to pluck up, and you threw yourself on the grenade for everybody there, and at least you did it eventually. In my view, you are absolved.
Sister Rebecca, what do you say?
Yeah. We've definitely all been there, and I just can't stand the tinny noise that you hear. And for someone who suffers tinnitus, it must be even worse. Is that right? I think you feel ashamed that you didn't do it earlier, but there wasn't a seat available earlier, so you would have had to kind of push past people and made a big play of pulling the plug out. And I think for your, the line, for the whole of humanity, I pulled his plug out. For that alone, you're forgiven 10 times.
Thank you.
We're all obviously going to forgive here, because we've all been in that, either a tube carriage or on a bus, and someone's playing that music. My mate has got a very good way of dealing with this, which is go up to them, sit next to them and go, "Oh, I love this one," and start singing along with them and see how quickly they get up and go. We're definitely going to forgive you, because we'd all love to do the same.
Russell, I think you can consider yourself forgiven. I said you can consider yourself forgiven.
Lovely, thank you. Do I go on my knees now?
No, absolutely. It's all done.
What?
Russell Grant, everybody. Thank you, Russell.
The Confessions Podcast.
Thanks for listening to our Edinburgh Festival Confession Special, and we hope that's got you in the mood for our Edinburgh shows coming up this week.
Yeah, we have an amazing lineup, including David Walliams, Rachel Parris, Marcus Brigstocke, him again, and Lucy Porter, plus live music from Deacon Blue, Wandering Hearts, Blossoms and Franz Ferdinand.
And that's us live in the BBC Blue Tent in Edinburgh, starting Monday at 5.
See you then.
The Confessions Podcast. Go in peace.